Hello and welcome to what we are calling Gambler Sickos Night. There are only two people at this station that are as sick and twisted when it comes to betting as myself, Joe Tansey, and Ryan Coyle, who we affectionately know as Beef. The two of us have been talking about this for about, 2 or 3 weeks now, about getting together and talking some college hoops and some NBA as well. So we are the self-proclaimed Sickos Committee of the Gambler, and here to guide you for the next 30 minutes on what to bet, not only in the NBA with the Sixers, Wizards, and some other games tonight, but college basketball as well. Ryan, it's so good, such a pleasure to finally have you in front of me on camera for a show. This is going to be lots of fun.
Yeah, it's always needed to kind of get some of these wild plays, these crazy games that people don't even know sometimes they're even existing. And some of us, like you and I, like to bet on them, just have some fun. So it's going to be fun to kind of hash this out, get some of these plays out, and hopefully give the listener some winners tonight.
So let's start with the Sixers and Wizards. We'll get to the really sick stuff in a few minutes. But when it comes to the Sixers and Wizards, the big story tonight is Kelly Oubre coming back. It sounds like he's going to come off the bench, but they're playing the Wizards. Doesn't seem like it's to be much of a contest. Last time they played, Sixers scored over 140 points. What are you looking at in this game?
Yeah, so as you said, the big news is with Oubre. I'm interested to see if he's on kind of a minutes restriction in this one. But the big thing with this game the first time around, Embiid dropped 48 on the Wizards in this one. But I'm looking at my play. Am I going to give my plays for this one right now?
Absolutely.
I like Tyrese Maxey to go over 25.5. I feel like he's a guy by season's end. He's going to be consistently in that 27 to 28 mark for a season average. I think that those numbers are going to continue to grow. He's had 28 or more in 4 of his last 5 games. And in the first time around when these two teams met up, he had 22 points. But as I said earlier, Embiid had 48 that night. So this is a game where even if Embiid's around that average that he's usually around that 32-point mark, I think there's some room for Maxey to kind of exploit this super weak defensive backcourt for the Washington Wizards and have a nice night tonight.
So I love exactly where you are with Maxey, but the one angle I'm going with him is assists. With the Wizards, they give up the most rebounds and assists per game, and that it really has to be a remarkable level of suck for you to give up the most amount of rebounds and assists. I think they might be close in points per game allowed as well. There's just nothing really going right with the Washington Wizards. And a game like this, you want your stars to come out and have a pretty decent game. And the one thing I look at with some of these lines, and they're a little bit adjusted because Oubre, we're not sure what we're going to see from him tonight. And I was tempted. I wanted to potentially look at him. But the two guys I look at, first, Maxey for assist, over 6.5. I think you're going to see a lot of Embiid playing bully ball with Daniel Gafford and the rest of the Wizards paint players. And then Tobias Harris, over 5.5 rebounds. Again, this is a Wizards team that gives up a lot of rebounds per game. So you're going to have a lot of opportunities. And I mean, how many times have we seen Jordan Poole just brick threes left and right? And look, Kuzma's a free shooter, and that can be pretty dangerous too. So I look, Joel's going to get his, no doubt about that. But I feel like in this matchup, Tobias had 5 in the last time they played. And I think you're going to see a lot more here. The rotations are going to be a little interesting off the bench, though, when it comes to actually what Oubre can do. Because I don't. The whole situation's still weird, right? With Oubre, it's like what exactly are we getting from him? It still seems bizarre that we don't have like a concrete answer on what exactly happened with him.
Yeah, and as well, I mean, when he got injured, he was arguably playing the best basketball of his NBA career. Now it's going to be kind of interesting to see. He's been away for a few weeks. Batum's really solidified himself in there as a starting option. Is he comfortable taking more of a backseat role? I know he was averaging upwards of 17, 18 points per game before his injury. Is he comfortable taking less shots, maybe down around that 12 to 13 points per game? There's certainly going to be an adjustment period potentially, but another play that kind of piggybacking off of what you were talking about with the Wizards giving up the most rebounds and assists. I also really like Tyrese Maxey over 36.5 PRA tonight. As I said, in the first matchup, he had 22 points, 11 assists. He only had 1 rebound in that matchup. So I would expect that number to go up a little bit. But if he was able to take advantage of them giving up that many assists in the first time, and if he's able to just get that number up to maybe 25, 26 points, I could easily see him getting 6, 7 assists, 4 or 5 rebounds, and he's hitting that number easy. 36.5 seems like a bit of a disrespectful number, but at the same time, with the 10-point spread, we could be looking at a blowout in this game. Maybe some guys like Kelly Oubre get a little bit more run to get some more conditioning and whatnot. But Maxey, I think he's in for a big game. I think he's going to be able to take advantage of this Wizards backcourt that is very, very poor on the defensive end.
Real quick, non-kind of betting question here. Would you rather have Oubre or Batum as your 5th guy in the starting lineup right now?
I like Batum. I like Oubre kind of coming off the bench. I think Batum is more that solidified, knows his role type. When things are going wrong in the offense, you can turn into a guy like Oubre to come off the bench and maybe be that spark plug type guy, get you 10, 12 points in a bunch.
A refined version of PJ Tucker.
Yeah, I guess that's a good way to put it. PJ Tucker's numbers recently, I think it's like 7, 8 straight games. He's had a 0 in the point column. So pretty great move there by Morey to get off that contract, and Batum seemed to fit in very well.
I was skeptical about it at first. When I see Batum, I see Marcus Morris, and I see exactly what I thought of PJ Tucker. And I'm like, oh no, here we go. We're not going to get much production out. But it seems like it's working well, and I'm very interested to see how it ends up working with Kelly Oubre in the mix as well. Because look, you're right. He was playing some of the best basketball of his career. He's cashed a lot of bets too, because he was going over in his points and threes pretty easily. So I'll be interested to see how that plays out. Also from a betting perspective, how the lines kind of even out with him. But I think for tonight, I think if you're looking at Sixers, it's probably some of the core guys, because we're not sure exactly. And look, Oubre hasn't been on the court in close to a month.
Yeah,
so that's something. The sharpness may take a minute or two to get back to that. We'll get back to some NBA bets towards the end of the show, but the real reason the two of us are here, the real reason we call ourselves the Gambler Sickos, is college basketball. And I met Ryan first time at one of our Thursday Night Football watch parties, and you're like betting on Mississippi Valley State in college basketball or whatever it was. You're a man after my own heart when it comes to college basketball. Not as good of a slate as last night, but that's why we're here. That's why we're here to dig into the weeds of college basketball and some plays we agree on as well. But the big game tonight is the Shaka Smart Bowl. Yeah. Texas at Marquette. The line is 8 points in favor of the Golden Eagles. It's a very interesting kind of matchup for me because Marquette coming off a loss to Wisconsin. They lost to Purdue. In between a win over Southern University, which doesn't carry much weight when it comes to this breakdown. And Texas, outside of their loss to Connecticut, really haven't played anybody, not too much of a schedule. But when you play a gauntlet in the Big 12, look, I get it if you're going to play a soft non-con. So what do you expect from this game when it comes to, is the spread right? Or is this the bounce back spot for Marquette? How do you see Texas Marquette going?
Yeah, so Marquette was actually my national title team at the beginning of the year. That big win over Kansas made me feel good. And then they had a tough loss to Purdue. But when you look inside, Iguodaro, he was in foul trouble that game. Obviously, that allows Zach Edey to exploit them. In the Marquette-Wisconsin game, the final score was 11. Wisconsin was up big. Marquette made a run, came back. They might have even tied it at one point. I forget if they exactly tied it or not, but they were within a couple points. And then Wisconsin kind of pulled away at the end. But we're seeing this Wisconsin team is a very good team. Beat up on Michigan State last night, who I think has been the biggest disappointment in college basketball season, but still never an easy thing to do. I think this is a perfect spot for a bounce back here. You look at Texas, they're 12th in the country, 6-1, but they started the year in the top 25. They're one of those teams that is benefiting from their preseason ranking right now because, all right, well, if they keep winning, you can't really move them down. I don't think this is a very good basketball team compared to last year. I thought that team was a lot better. As you said, their only loss being that UConn game. They lost that game by 10, but they haven't beat anyone. They only beat Louisville by 1. They needed a clutch shot from Max Asmus down the stretch. I think there's a Marquette team that is in for a bounce back, and they seem to really love playing for their coach, and they know how things kind of ended there at Texas for Shaka Smart. I think this is one of those revenge spots. You have Marquette at home in this one too. That's historically a pretty tough place to go into and play. So I think Marquette has a good shot in this one. I was able to, on DraftKings, I have a 50% boost in this game. So I just moved the line down to 6. I got that at minus 115 there with that 50% boost to kind of make it back to normal odds. So I do like Marquette in this one. The 8.5, I think it might be down to 7.5 on some markets right now, is a little bit of a high number. But I do like Marquette to win this game. I think this is one of those matchups where they can expose Texas and maybe prove that they're not really worthy of being a top 15 team at this stage of the season.
See, this guard matchup fascinates me because you have two veteran guards in Tyrese Hunter and Max Abmas from Texas who have been around the block. Abmas specifically. Now we get to see him at the Power 5 level instead of hoping to see him on a stream at Oral Roberts twice a year in conference play. I think this is a big test for Texas. I think this game means more to the Longhorns in the national perspective than it does Marquette. And again, this guard matchup, I mean, it's going to be really, really fun to watch. I think Texas is up for it. Look, I know the defense, their numbers are skewed because of who they played, but I think they can hang. I really do. And I think in a game like this, I know it's not an NCAA tournament game, but it's a tournament level style game, and veteran guard play goes a long way for me. So I'm going to take Texas with the 8. Hope they can hang around. I used my 50% boost just on straight on the spread to get to plus money. I think it's going to be a fun game. I think it will live up to the billing of game of the night. Moving on, now we're in the weeds, and you and I actually were in agreement on a few of these games. And there's one thing I hate doing when I bet, and I found myself doing it a little more at the start of this college basketball season. That's betting unders. I'm not really a big unders guy. If I see a game that I think is going to go under, I kind of avoid it. And I think some of these lines end up being so sharp by the end of the season where you kind of stay away. But I think there's a few of them tonight, and one we're in agreement on. Penn State and Maryland. Oof. I mean, good luck trying to watch this game if you do. Look, Maryland, their performance against Villanova a few weeks ago was still ingrained in my memory. 40 points, just an atrocious offensive basketball game. It's more offensive than offensive. And then they reel off 3 straight wins, cool, whatever, and then put up 53 points in a loss to Indiana last week. It's just not good enough. It really isn't. And the KenPom numbers are just staggering with both of these teams. I think Penn State still trying to figure their way around things as well with Mike Rhodes as head coach. Both of these teams, 3-point percentage on KenPom. Maryland's 359. That's not good. You know how many teams there are in Division I? I think there's 363, 5 now?
I believe it is, yeah.
That's bad. That's very bottom. And Penn State is 292nd. And if you know Mike Rhodes from where he comes from at VCU, he values the defense more. I think this is going to be a rock fight. This feels weird to still say Big Ten battle. Maryland will always be an ACC team to me, regardless of what this is. But there's no way this game is getting to 140 points. Like, even if everybody makes their shots here, nothing about this game speaks to a game in the 70s. So I'm on the under 140.5, and I think you are as well.
Yeah, I really like this one. I actually got it at 139.5 around lunchtime today. I'm a big trends guy. I like to follow some trends, and I also I keep a close eye on coaches going to new spots. Like you were saying with Mike Rhodes going from VCU to Penn State, they were a very defensive-heavy team with him there. When you look at Kevin Willard and his time at Seton Hall, they were never really a high-scoring bunch either, and he's carried that over to Maryland. Maryland is 6-2 in favor of the under this season. And dating back to last year, in their first year under Kevin Willard, they were 23-12 in favor of the under. So this is a team that over a pretty large sample size now, they're 29-14 in favor of the under with Kevin Willard at Maryland. So it's a play that you should be kind of marking on your phone to have like an alert, like check every morning if Maryland's playing, because it looks like they're going to be having a lot of unders this year, a team that has really no outside shooting whatsoever. Like you were saying, 359th in KenPom. It's a team that is going to struggle, and they've been widely considered one of the 5 to 10 biggest disappointments so far in the early season. Are they able to control the tempo at home tonight and keep it a little bit lower scoring as well? I think it's going to be something to watch and something that they try to do. I'm right there with you.
Speaking of VCU, woof. Goodness gracious. I don't know if you saw who they lost to over the weekend. but they only put up 60 points at home against Norfolk State. This kind of goes to the trend of VCU. They don't associate, even back to when Shaka was the head coach. They don't associate as an offensive fireworks team. I still think Havoc. That's the first word I associate with VCU is Havoc. Ryan Odom, now the head coach there, who was at UMBC, I believe, when they upset Virginia. They play Memphis tonight. Look, VCU, the offensive numbers aren't great. Last three losses. So they've lost 3 of their last 4, with a win against Penn State being the only thing in the middle of anything positive there in that stretch. And all 3 of those games were in the 60s, both teams. Maryland, VCU in the low 60s, their opponents high 60s. Look, Memphis is very clearly the better team, but in this matchup, I just don't see VCU scoring a ton of points if Memphis is ahead. And this game's in Richmond, so I feel like this VCU is going to kind of drag Memphis down to their style of play. I got the total at under 144.5. This is a game where I think VCU kind of drags Memphis down, and Memphis has to find a way to win in a dogfight. And can they do it? I think it would be a nice little test. I don't know if it'll resonate nationally, but I think when we look back in March and say, oh, that's a nice win, I think they'll have that as well. And then one more under. Look, I watched Arizona State play Thanksgiving weekend about 1 a.m. Against BYU in Las Vegas, and their offense was just atrocious. And that's the only thing that's stuck in my mind with the Sun Devils since. Their offensive numbers kind of suggest that. Not in the top 200 and 3.2 point or even free throw percentage on KenPom. 3 metrics that you really don't want to be that low in. 309 and 3-point, 355 in free throw. That's really concerning if you're trying to put away a home game and win a defensive battle. In this contest with SMU, it's late at night. I feel like this game is going to trend toward the under. It's going to be pretty ugly. I just don't trust Arizona State's offense against a decent opponent. But they played 3 games against KenPom top 100. One a 71-56 loss to Mississippi State, 77-49 loss to BYU, both on neutral courts. And then they beat San Francisco on Sunday, 72-61. None of those games get remotely close to this total of 143. I feel like they feel like an under team until they can prove they can score a ton of points in a big game. So 3 unders for me: Penn State, Maryland, Memphis, VCU, and SMU, ASU. There's a money line pick that both of us are on. I'll let you break it down because I know you're the true sicko. It's kind of initiation with me. Give me your true sicko. I know you're on Ball State tonight.
Yep. Yeah, so I have Ball State. I actually got it earlier this morning, -1.5. I don't love this. Last time I checked, Detroit flipped to a -1 favorite. But this
hasn't won this season, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I'm going with it. Ball State 4-2 against the spread this season. They have a couple games against non-Division I opponents where there wasn't a line. That's why they only have 6 games eligible against the spread. But Detroit Mercy 0-8 straight up this year, 2-6 against the spread. And if you know anything about Detroit Mercy from their past, they ran and they lived and died with Antoine Davis.
Right.
I believe he finished second all-time in college basketball history in scoring. He's not there anymore. So this is a team that is just starting to kind of adjust to life without a guy that's going to shoot the ball 30 to 35 times each night. Just not a real good collection of talent. I won't sit here and lie and say that I've watched a lot of Detroit Mercy game, but just knowing from the past few years, having tuned into them, this is not a team that is very talented outside of Davis, and he's no longer there. So it might be a trap line where it's like, oh, why is this 6-2 Ball State team an underdog at Detroit Mercy? But again, this is just one of those games. Why not bet it? Why not take a flyer on it and take a chance? 0-8 on the year, 2-6 against the spread. I'll take my chances with that any day.
Yeah, I saw that too. And look, I know it's a road game, and Ball State is 0-2 on the road this season. But when you're really struggling on offense in the way that Detroit Mercy is, and look, defensively, they haven't been good either. Look at what they've done throughout the season, giving up 80-plus points 3 times, 70-plus points 6 times. The only time their defense has played remotely good was in their 2 league games against Oakland and Cleveland State, and they still lost those games, both of them by double digits. All of their defensive metrics are in the bottom third. It's not just the offense that's lacking, it's the defense that's lacking, and that one stood out to me as well. I think there's one game also involving a Horizon League team that you and I are on a few different sides on, Toledo and Oakland. Toledo, one of the faster paced teams in the country. Oakland already have one big win. I believe it was over Xavier, if I'm correct. Yeah, Xavier, they've also beat in Detroit Mercy. But this is a Toledo team that loves to push the pace. Look, they've lost 4 in a row, but even in those games, they've gotten over 70 in all of those games. They've conceded 75 in all of those games as well. And in fact, in 6 of their 7 games, the opponent scored 75, and they've at least scored 70. This is an over team. Toledo is a fun team to watch if you get into mid-major college basketball. And I think they're going to push the pace, needing a win, basically, here to kind of get everything back on track before conference play. So I'm on the Toledo-Oakland over 149. I know you have a side in this game.
Yeah, just a quick chime in on Toledo. Like you said, they were a team over these past few years with the Friday night MAC games.
Yep.
Once college basketball really gets into league play, they are always them and Kent State. Those are 2 fun teams to watch that like to get up and down. I actually went with Oakland money line in this one. It was minus 115. They were minus 1. That was minus 108. So I said, you know what, just let's go with it straight up here, minus 115. Oakland is the 4th best team, though, in college basketball this year against the spread. To start the year, they're 8-1. So this is a pretty good squad that has been dominating the books to start off the year. They're coming off their first loss against the spread this season, though, in loss to Indiana, Purdue, Fort Wayne. So I'm looking for a bounce back here from Oakland. They're a battle-tested team. They've played a bunch of major conference teams so far. They've played Illinois, Ohio State, Xavier, and Drake, who last year was in the tournament and potentially could be going back this year. So they've played a tough schedule. And like you said, Toledo might be in a little bit of a down year this year. I believe only 3-4 to start the season. So you get Oakland at home in this one too. I like them to win this game straight up and take that bet on the money line.
2 more for me real quick. I'm on Bryant minus 8 against Siena. Bryant has been phenomenal this season, even with Phil Martelli Jr. taking over as interim and then actual head coach. So I like them in that game. I like South Carolina as well, plus 8.5 against Clemson. Rivalry game, I think South Carolina is the team that we're all sleeping on in the SEC that come like January, like mid-January, like, oh, they're in the standings. They're actually pretty decent last year, but the SEC is just so crowded that they do get lost in the shuffle a little bit. But those are the 2 more I'm on. So the whole 8-pack here is Penn State, Maryland under, Memphis, VCU under, Ball State money line, Toledo, Oakland over, Bryant minus 8, Texas plus 8, South Carolina plus 8.5, and the Arizona State under. Beef, what else do you got in the college basketball slate tonight?
Yeah, so I'm actually on the opposite side in that South Carolina game. I am taking Clemson minus 8.5. As you mentioned, rivalry game, so it could be a close one. Both teams come in at 7-0. I think South Carolina's record's a little more inflated, though, due to a poor non-conference schedule. Their best win is over probably Grand Canyon, who had a nice win over San Diego State last night, maybe Virginia Tech. But Clemson owns wins over some potential tournament teams in UAB, Alabama, and Pitt. They got a future NBA player in PJ Hall. Joe Girard's fit in pretty well. I could see a lot of people being surprised and just seeing, all right, South Carolina 7-0. Why are they an 8.5-point underdog? I'm going to take that, fall for the bait. 77% of the public on South Carolina as well. So I really like Clemson. I think that they could be a real fighter in the ACC for one of those top spots this year. So I'm going Clemson minus 8.5. I'm also on Iona Hofstra over 150.5. Iona.
This is why we have you on the program.
Iona is 5-3 in favor of the over this year. I've watched them a couple times during feast week, 11 a.m. tips. They will press you 94 feet the entire game. So you get some chances at some steals, some easy baskets, but then you look also on the other end, there's a chance for layups. So I think this one gets up and back in a track meet. Hofstra scored 70 or more every game this season and has scored 85 in 4 games. So I think this is a game that we see a lot of points. And then I had my one more play, my dog of the day. I give this out on Twitter every day. Most days, 5 or 6 days of the week, but it's my dog of the day, which is underdog against the spread. I've hit 6 of my last 7 against the spread, 4 out of my last 7 straight up. So these are all plus money plays. Tonight's play is Towson plus 2.5 plus 120 on the money line against UMass. I always like to take these teams where not a big talent discrepancy, and Towson's at home as an underdog catching the points. I love those spots. And it's a system that I've kind of been looking at over the past week where I've had Arkansas over Duke, Ole Miss over Memphis, K-State over Nova last night. So you're giving me points to a team with pretty even talent-wise. I'm going to take them at home. I think this Towson team is going to be one of the top teams in the CAA this year. So my picks are Towson plus 2.5, Clemson minus 8.5. Ball State -1.5, Oakland money line, Iona Hofstra over 150.5, and then that Maryland Penn State under of 139.5.
This is why we have self-proclaimed ourselves as the gambler sickos. Now, there's a loaded NBA slate tonight, so on our way out, look, we already talked about our Sixers plays. Are there any other NBA? I'll get into mine real quick. Look, one of the teams that stands out to me so far this season is the Hawks and how much pace they play out. The over-under, I believe, is 243 tonight. 242.5 now. That's the highest on the schedule, at least for tonight, because tomorrow's Pacers-Bucks over is 254.5. It's incredible to see those numbers. I love seeing points in these types of games. So I think this is going to be a pretty free-flowing type of basketball game. And if you are on DraftKings, you have a risk-free same-game parlay to use tonight on the NBA. So here's what we're cooking up for this game. Highest over on the board. So, look, I just gravitate to that. So 3-pointers. We have Bogdanovich, and Cameron Johnson, both over 2.5. 3-pointers. Spencer Dinwiddie over 7.5 assists, and Trae Young. We're going to make that 10 assists, make that the all that way, a nice round number, and that gets you to plus 750. That is our at least mine DraftKings NBA same game parlay for tonight. I think you're going to see once again a pretty fast paced Atlanta Hawks game, and you have two of the better shooters on each side in Johnson and Bogdanovich. Trae Young has been over 10 assists in his last 3 games. If there's going to be one primary passer on the Nets, it's Spencer Dinwiddie. So there's a nice little 4-legger there. Young 10 assists, Dinwiddie 8 assists, Johnson and Bogdanovich 2.5 threes at plus 750.
Yeah, my same game parlay I have cooked up for the NBAs and the Nuggets Clippers game. We're going with the Nuggets on the money line here. They've won 8 straight games against the Clippers. Jokic over 9.5 assists. That's at plus 100. He's had 14 or more assists in 3 straight games. And Jokic over 29.5 points as well. Nuggets haven't played since Saturday night, so they're rested. I could see him coming out giving a 40, 15, and 10 type of game, having a big outing. And the Nuggets, as I said, won 8 straight games over the Clippers. This is a Clippers team still trying to figure things out. A rested Nuggets squad coming into this one. I like them to get this one. And then if we're going to call ourselves the Sickos, I'm going with the NBA Sicko play of the night. I'm going with the Grizzlies. I took them on the money line at -130. They are playing the Pistons tonight, arguably,
which is the sickest of sick games in the NBA.
Yeah, the worst 2 teams probably in the NBA to start the year. The Pistons have lost 17 in a row, so play with this one with some caution. I might be giving it the kiss of death. They might just be due for a game, but NBA favorites on the year coming off a loss are 16-0 straight up in their next game. So if you want to play a trend in this one, look at the Grizzlies. They're straight up. You might have to bite some juice, take it at the -130. They are -2 for the spread, but it might just be worth it to bite the juice and take them straight up there on the money line. But if we're calling ourselves the Sickos, we had to throw that one in there too.
We might have to permanently call us the Sickos, at least you and me.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing this a lot more on weeknights with Sean Bernard mixing in with the NBA as well. But yeah, if this might have to stick because it really is the sickest of sickos, and you have the two guys that will bet on Ball State basketball at the Gambler, the 2 of us right here on screen. But that's it for tonight. Enjoy all the basketball, plenty of it, plenty of the NBA, plenty of college hoops as well, and hopefully we've blessed you with plenty of winners across both slates. So for Ryan Coyle, I am Joe Tansey. Thank you guys for tuning in, and best of luck on your bets tonight.